Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am making, or I already made, this was filmed back in May, but it is currently September. Don't think about it too much. For this video, I am making a concept that has been sitting in the back of my brain for quite some time. There's a little holiday that goes by the name of Black Fae Day, and it occurs on the second Saturday of May. It was created by Jasmine LaFleur in 2021, and it was just meant to celebrate all things magical and for Black kids to see themselves in fantasy, since we are so often excluded from the space. It just gave everybody a chance to create their own fairies and to do their own magical beings and see themselves out in the world using the hashtag Black Fae Day. For the holiday, I created my fourth Parkersona, as I like to call them, by the name of Vizera, who is supposed to be a celestial fae maid of the universe itself. I'll explain more about how all of the Parkersonas work and just kind of how they all came to be, but Vizera is the fourth of the Parkersonas. This year, I wanted to do the Stargate Dress. The idea is to make a corset of stained glass, or at least faux stained glass, because I'm not trying to hurt myself. And I collaborated with one of my good Judies, Diana from What the Craft, to laser cut them, and then I filled them in with epoxy and put them together with a dress that I made out of some poly satin. Without continuing to ramble at you, let's go ahead and just dive right into it. I consider myself a novice when it comes to sewing, and rather than spend this video focusing on technique or the little ways in which you should properly do this, because I am not properly doing any of that, I'm going to focus more on inspiration for original design. I like to take my inspiration from things like anime, different designs and styles that you see in things like Sailor Moon, which took its inspiration from fantastic fashion and haute couture, and then just bringing that back into a more realistic place. The dress Luna wears in her human form, for instance, has been burning a hole in my brain since I was a child. And as much as I love Luna, I just don't think that I would go to the lengths that it would take to create a full cosplay for her. However, I do have Vizera, one of my own original characters. Vizera is a being made of the universe, thought to be created from the stars themselves, so what more appropriate dress than Luna's dress? And in blue, and to make it my own and style it in a way that is reflective of the things that I love. The petal hem on Luna's dress is just so beautiful, and I really appreciate the shapes that it creates. I'm also a very big fan of an asymmetrical design, so I'm creating a lot of highs and lows through the multiple yards of satin that I'm going to be using for the skirt. And while I did say I want to keep this in a more practical realm, I also want drama because of who I am as a person. So this back panel is going to consist of 3 very long petals that'll create a train effect. And the hope is that once I'm done with it, I'll be able to tack it up in a way that it just looks like a really big fancy dress when I do want to wear it to more casual, formal situations. You'll notice I'm not following a pattern, I'm just creating shapes. And that's what I love the most about original design. It gives me a chance to just play with different shapes and try different things. I think it is so beautiful that there are so many dressmakers and creators out there in the world, like Tueta Matoshi and Lyrica Matoshi and the creators of Selkie, who just create all of these beautiful things that get recreated so often. But I also wonder what we lose when we don't just get in there and try things and make mistakes, and instead of trying to recreate the same thing over and over, you know? So get in there, try some new things, fuck it up. To be abundantly clear, there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing a one-to-one recreation of a design you are inspired by or something that you love. But keep in mind that those really famous designers just had an idea once, and they went with it. So give yourself opportunities to just go with your ideas. You have no idea where they could take you. And it was during this stretch break that she magically decided to change up the design. But I'm much happier with the way the points came out. Give yourself space to change your mind. That's also important in design. The wonderful thing about experimentation is that you can try techniques across different fabrics and projects to see how it'll work. When I did Heat Miser, I had a lot of triangular scraps that were made of chiffon and created a beautiful fringe-like effect because I was going for a 20s flapper style look. I have a lot of triangular scrap in this design too, and I think that'll work to add different points of interest throughout the dress, mimicking a lot more of that high and low shape. The abundance of the Belle petal dress has also been really inspiring to me lately, but as much as I loved Belle, I thought it was a really great take on the story of Beauty and the Beast. I just don't think I would ever cosplay her or go to the trouble of making a dress that beautiful and taking all of that time. So again, I get to incorporate those elements for other characters that mean more to me. Because I followed no pattern and I have no chill, I ended up with 14.4 yards of fabric in the skirt alone, and now I need to pleat all of that down to make it a manageable waistband. Oh, here we go. And yes, I did pleat all of this down using the fork method. Admittedly harder to do one-handed, so can we get a little movie magic in here, please? Thank you. The idea, because I am a ridiculous human being, is for this to open, because I've been having a very vivid dream since Vizera is supposed to be made of the universe, of them sort of opening their chest and revealing the universe. And to make that more fashion and less gore, I thought it might be better with a window. I also think I'm really funny and thought it would be very cute to open a window to display my glorious cleavage. And for glorious cleavage, we need a plunging neckline. This is also probably a great time to say hello to my mom and my family members who occasionally watch my channel. It's fine, they know exactly who I am, and if they don't, surprise! My only other objective for the bodice is to ensure that it sits directly behind the window and it's cut just to that point. I measured out where I wanted everything to lay before I sent off the details to my good Judy Diana, who cut the window panels out of plywood. The inspiration for this idea came several years ago when I watched Rhaegar over on Instagram finish building Lyra Dawnbringer's stained glass armor set. Oh my gosh, it was just the most beautiful thing to behold. I've never seen it in person, but just watching the progress pictures over the years it took her to build this was so inspiring. I haven't been able to get it out of my brain since, and I kept thinking to myself, but what if you could see through it? And then I thought to myself, Parker, we are not about to make an actual stained glass corset because that could be dangerous. Even though I know how to cut glass, the idea of wearing glass, not so smart, especially with the way that I like to pose and run around. I am not graceful unless I am dancing or doing something predetermined. However, I have worked with epoxy before, and there are plenty of ways you can get it to look just like glass. I considered using Transpa art by Warbla because I've used that plenty of times for other things. However, it wasn't adhering very well to the wooden frames and it just didn't look right. So I figured epoxy would be a lot more durable and it'll protect the frames better because they are still pretty fragile on their own. To continue playing on the underlying themes of heavenly bodies and the golden gates, I am making these gates gold. But we've got to start with the black base paint first. It's also important that I paint these now because I won't have the same opportunity to once the epoxy has been applied. I created this design in Photoshop, and I know that it looks a bit like the Arizona flag, and I'm also from Arizona, unfortunately, but that was not the intention. I just wanted golden rays and the idea of them emanating from the star in the center. Last year for Black Fae Day, I made Vizera a top and skirt out of 176 hand-poured epoxy stars. So it's rather fitting that I should put a star somewhere into this, and there will be plenty more, but we'll come back to that later. And it feels very fitting that it's getting epoxy too. By this point, I was getting down to the wire, so I didn't film a couple of steps, but I'll talk you through them here. I used some of that Easy Tack spray that I've mentioned previously to adhere these wooden panels to the silicone mat. Off camera, I did a water test to ensure that the little panels wouldn't leak out. There was a little bit of spillage, but it wasn't that bad, so I opted to move forward with the epoxy in each of the individual spaces created on the mat. I want to ensure I don't just cover the whole thing in epoxy. I don't want the whole thing to be shiny. I want the wood to appear as if it were the fire lines for stained glass. Due to the size of the pour on each of these, it's not very deep, it's pretty low volume. I can use my heat gun to get most of the air bubbles out, and I shouldn't have very much issue. For something a little deeper, you would probably want to do it in layers, and you would also want to use something like a torch so that way you could get it crystal clear and get that really glassy effect. But for what we need, this will work just fine. The only thing that won't work is the Craft Smart epoxy. That stuff is very bubbly, it is terrible. You can use it for strengthening, but if you want a glassy effect, just save your money. I wasn't even sure this would work, so I didn't bother pre-mixing color into the epoxy to pour it individually, and instead decided that I would just use Sharpie to color in the different spaces. I'm going a bit heavier in the corners and then using my finger to smudge the color out and give a little bit of an opacity blend. To ensure a proper connection, I'm drilling little holes into the edges. Eventually what I want to do is add hinges to the whole thing so that it hinges and opens properly on the inside, and clips to the dress and can be removed so I can launder it with my regular laundry. For now, I'm just creating the little pilot holes so that I can sew it on and get to the shoot. For temporary hinges, I used clear packing tape. It worked like a charm and you couldn't see it in the shoot. I can always go back in and give it the proper hinges that it deserves, but for now, I have a shoot to fulfill. that's all for this episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed the journey, and hopefully you'll be back to craft with me again. I want to give a big shout out to my patrons, Ko, Windriel, and Paula. Thank you so much for all of the support that you give. You have no idea how much it means to me. And thank you to everybody who's just watching, commenting, and following along. I hope that you are also enjoying the videos as much as I'm enjoying making them. I've got some spooky stuff upcoming with October right over the horizon, and I cannot wait to share it with you. We're going to be doing a variety of things. If you want some behind the scenes on all of that spooky stuff, you can get that over on Patreon. I've got tiers as low as $1 going all the way up to 10, just depending on the different things that you like. And if you would like real-time updates, I'm very active over on my Instagram. I'm usually in my stories almost every day. A great way to get a look at all of the variety of things that I'll be doing for what I like to call the Hollow series, which I've been doing since 2018? Oh my god, has it been that long? It's been that long. Maybe even 2017. That's neither here nor there. Well, my friends, that's the end, but we'll be back to craft again, especially if you like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.